What is up? Welcome back to Kiwi Labs Pickleball YouTube channel. I had to quickly turn around and make another video. I just made a video about some carbon fiber paddle controversy that I wanted to address. Simultaneously, another issue around delamination in paddles hit like that. And I think a lot of people were going to my video hoping I would talk about delamination, and I had that planned for this video. So this is all about three things. Here's what we're going to get into. It's obviously a really hot topic right now because of, well, one of the sections of this video, which is a tweet from Ben Johns. So there's three sections we're going to do here. First is, teach you a little bit in case you don't know, what is delamination? Why does it happen? And what paddles can it happen to? The second thing we want to talk about is the actual Ben Johns tweet, because there's actually a lot of, I'd say, drama floating around on it, and people are really we'll get into it. It's juicy. We got to check it out. And then the third thing, I want to get into my thoughts as a paddle maker. What are we doing to make sure our paddles don't have the same delamination issue, and what I think is causing the issues for these brands that are having it. I have a pretty strong theory that I've semi-confirmed with the factory I work with, and then what they are doing and we're doing and everyone's doing, like I said, to just make sure it's not happening again. So stay tuned. We're going to get into all of that right now. Okay, I'm going to define delamination in the most simple way possible. I'll just use this as an example because this is a thermoformed paddle. Now, popular paddles right now are using this newer technology called thermoformed unibody design, which essentially means it is all one piece in the sidewalls, the top, the bottom is all one piece carbon fiber usually. Well, I think it's only carbon fiber right now. I was doing that. But then there's still a core in the middle, and you need to attach the core to the top and bottom of the paddle. And what's happening is essentially everyone just uses glue, different type of adhesives, to make sure that the one piece stays intact with the core. Now the issue is that's happening is that the face is becoming unadhered to the core, which makes sense that it's an issue. Obviously hindsight's 2020, but let's actually grab this guy. So because these guys are done in layers, like there's a bottom layer, the core, the top layer, and then it's all just sealed like this, you have two chances to stick to the core. Whereas in a thermal press, yeah, you still have the layers in a way, but essentially because it's a unibody construction, you gotta have it perfect, for lack of a better word. It just has to be a perfect press to get it in there. Long story short, that's what's happening. The face is becoming unadhered to the core, causing, and here's why it's an issue, is it's actually giving players an advantage with a little more spring. It becomes essentially like a trampoline. Your paddle can now has a give, so when the ball hits, it can go into the paddle and basically rocket ship off of there. And now, if you're wondering, like, does my paddle have this? Am I at risk of this? Only if it is a thermoformed paddle. So if it's not, then you have nothing to worry about. Obviously, if you have delamination in a different paddle, it's totally different than what we're talking about here usually. But a way to tell is you'd actually be able to feel that, like you'd be able to push in and feel that something's wrong. You'd hear that it's making a different sound. Man, I wish I could give this guy a shout out because he made a great video. He had two Vatic paddles, the one that was delaminated and one that wasn't, and you can hear the difference. Let me Google it. He deserves a shout out because that is honestly how I learned a little more about that. So Tickle My Pickleball, shout out to him. Go give him some subscribers because I loved that video he made. Yeah, he had two Vatics and you could tell the sound was a lot different. And the final way to tell is basically if you're playing, you'll probably feel a difference. It'll respond differently. It'll, you know, maybe you'll see that power transfer a little harder, and you'll basically know. It's not too hard to know if your paddles become delaminated. So like I said, some of the companies that are dealing with this right now, Vatic, like I mentioned, this is a good segue into the Ben Johns tweet. His tweet said, add diamond, SixZero they make a paddle called the Diamond. And he says, add that to the list of paddles with a surface that delaminates along with Carbon, Vatic, and Legacy Pro. And this is where we'll just read the whole tweet right now. He says, and this is fine in general, the tweet, I think, but here's where I think he maybe stepped out of line, if I'm being honest. I think, I'll read it. He says, companies will continue to have no respect for the rules until they're actually penalized. I blame no players playing with what they are given, only companies. Now, the second half of that I agree with. Who would blame the players? They're just exactly what he said. They're playing with what the companies gave them. But, you know, maybe I'm going to be biased towards the companies because, you know, but they might not know that's, and a lot of the companies on here, the second they knew, they're taking actions. They're swapping glue. They're adding more glue or whatever it takes to make sure that this is no longer an issue. His second tweet here read, and no, before anyone asks, I have not lost a single match to one of these types of paddles that have been delaminated. I feel strongly about respecting the rules, and I feel bad for a pro playing fair that has lost and feels like they competed on an uneven playing field. And now this stirred everything up. We got responses from tons and tons of paddle companies, including some drama when Legacy responded, and Ben Johns actually deleted or hid their response in his field, which that's where I started to have issues with this entire thing. You can't call out a brand and not let them at least state their case. That seems insane, especially when you're calling for these big companies to be punished, essentially. I could be reading it wrong, but how can it not sound like that? So much so that I think Ben Johns realized this and backtracked, because his third tweet here said, also to be clear, there is no possible way to say whether the issue is by design or a manufacturing flaw. And there is a possible way, because no one would do this on purpose. Nobody wants their paddle to break. So that's a little silly. But then he says, so I will not say any company does it on purpose, but the issue should be fixed ASAP. And it is. It's being accounted for. A little wavery there, in my opinion, but I guess I'm glad that he kind of landed in a more central area. I don't know. I thought it was pretty crazy because, yes, it's an issue, but I think all these companies have made it pretty clear that they're working on it. And when a tweet like this goes out, it becomes 10 times more visible, especially from, you know, one of the most premier pickleball players in the world, right? So delamination is now on everybody's mind. Everyone is talking about it when it's not as big as they're saying. Like, one, it's already being accounted for by almost every, I can't say for sure, but I think every company on this list, it's been accounted for. They're fixing it or it's fixed. And to then just start saying it's an issue again, your average Joe who's not following all this pickleball news is thinking, oh, I'm never touching a thermoformed paddle again, or I'm never working with Carbon, Vatic, or Legacy Pro because Ben Johns tweeted about them and said that they're all delaminating. So that, I don't love it. I would like to point to Vatic Pro's response. I'm going to read it. It says, towards the end of their response, they said, delamination is an unforeseen side effect of the manufacturing process, and it has been rapidly addressed in our redesigned paddles. To say that we're purposely creating illegal paddles is completely false. It's clear that these accusations damage our reputation and undermine our business. We take these allegations very seriously. I think they could have just said that, and that sums up basically all of this. It's just, there's a responsibility to be held with the things you say when you're at this level. And I think that's exactly what they're trying to say. It actually hurts an entire company when these things are said, especially when you're digging at the company and not even giving them a chance, like silencing their tweets. That's like, it's weird. It's not cool. So bridging into the final section of this video, you know, my thoughts as a paddle producer and what I think happened and what I think maybe the solutions are. Well, I'll start with the solutions. It's more and or better adhesive. At the end of the day, you know, like I said, I talked to my factories about it and they said, you know, we'll be very vigilant of it. We've never had it. Any of our paddles that they produce, they've never seen this issue. So they, long story short, we've accounted for it. So these guys can too. And the reason I think they saw it, well, one, we have the luxury of not being huge. Like, we're doing small batch orders. We can keep an eye on quality control. We can directly talk to the people making our paddles and adjust on the fly and say, you know, make sure this is an issue. Like, we have that as kind of a luxury of being a smaller company. Whereas, I'm going to use Legacy as an example. They're a total random example here. I'm not saying this is what happened to them at all, but I want to use them as an example because they've been sold out, I think, since January or something like that. They've had great reviews on their paddles. Everybody wants one. So they are needing to really go to town and either use multiple factories to produce their paddle or rush order them. And they're probably like, hey, please, we have customers. We need, you know, 1,000 paddles like tomorrow. And that puts pressure on the factory. That puts pressures on the workers and the people building them. And it's just bound to say, you know, again, I'm not saying this happened to them, but my theory stands that when you're doing largely rushed paddles that take a lot longer to produce than your standard paddles, these thermoformed take, I think, something like 4 times longer per paddle to make. So when there's more pressure, you could start using half the glue and not know it was going to be an issue until it's an issue. So it was almost a mistake that I think was bound to eventually happen, but we caught it early, and I don't think we'll see it again unless it's at a paddle company who didn't care enough to talk to their producers and make sure it's not an issue anymore, or, you know, they can find a new factory. That's where I want to wrap things up here. I think I've maybe talked too long about the delamination issue, and I'm part of the problem now because now I'm making more videos about it and talking about it when, you know, going back to my main point is, I don't like that we made a giant thing in the pickleball community about delamination when it's not even that big of an issue at the end of the day. I think that, like, yes, it's a big issue. Don't get me wrong. It's like, if it's in the pros and it's hard to test if a paddle became delaminated, I could see being a pro wanting to get that out there so nobody tries to pull a fast one, or that they can make sure to test a previously approved paddle, not only for grit standards or friction standards, but also for delamination. So let this be the last we have to ever talk about delamination, and that's that. One final thing here. I just want to say a huge thank you to anyone who's been watching these videos. This is like the 3rd or 4th video I've made on the channel, and the feedback I've gotten from you guys is just blowing my mind. You are all the absolute best. I have had nothing but amazing things, and the pre-orders on our paddle, you guys are insane. I can't believe, like, I'll send newsletters out and keep you guys all, oh my God, I literally got another pre-order. I saw it coming on my phone right now. That's so cool. You guys are the best. So I'm so excited. You know, we didn't know what to expect going into this, but we have we're expected, you could turn this off if you don't care, but the people who do care, you know, I do want to let you guys know that we have ordered our first batch of slices right here, and they should be ready to ship mid to early April. I don't want to overpromise anything, so I'm going to say mid-April, and your pre-orders will be shipped. And again, a huge thank you to you guys. I'll be sure to throw in some, you know, stickers or something, a couple extra freebies, because I just can't believe how many of you guys there are pre-ordering. You guys are the best, and I can't wait till you guys try this. I love what we ended up with. So I will do a full video about, you know, the paddle, because this is, at the end of the day, the Kiwi Lads Pickleball channel, so I should probably tell you about the paddle a little more. So that video is next, and I'll stop talking. Thank you guys again for watching. I appreciate it, and bye.